All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to In the Conference Room with Mark S. Lee. And I'm so pleased to welcome you back into the conference room. And it's exciting times for all of us, exciting times for me. Just had a very brief hiatus, and it's nice to be back on this beautiful day. Just sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation. And I am so pleased to welcome to the conference room. You all know her, but we're going to have a slightly different conversation with her today as well. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Charlene Mitchell, President of Media Consultants, to end the conference room with Mark S. Lee. Charlene Mitchell, welcome. So glad to have you.
Mark, it is a pleasure to be with you. We've worked together. We've done some projects together, and I consider you just one of the real, true professionals in the Metro Detroit area in terms of having your finger on the pulse of what's happening, knowing the really important business people, and you always give accurate information to people that is useful. Because if we don't know what's going on and we get the wrong information, which we commonly do these days, it makes life confusing. So you are a breath of fresh air.
Oh, well, thank you. And my feelings are certainly mutual for you. I think we've known each other for a while, and you're spot on. I think, and we've had conversations about this. What frustrates me is misinformation. What frustrates me is that people only take sound bites as opposed to seeing a bigger picture. And I think one of the things that we try to do in the conference rooms we've been doing over the last 5 years with this particular broadcast and previously and other things I've done, and you do it as well. So we try to bring the whole picture and the totality and let people come up with their own judgments based on the information that's presented. And if we don't do that, Charlene, I think that we continue to risk this thing called being fair and objective, and then everything runs off the rails. So I want to ditto what you do in terms of how you handle your guests and all the interviews that you've done over the years. And let's just jump right into the conversation. A lot of people in this town, in this city, and beyond, they know you for your broadcasting career, your broadcast career, particularly most recent radio, your marketing business. We'll come back to that as well. But let's focus on you. Let's focus on Charlene Mitchell. Who is Charlene Mitchell? Where is she from? Talk about that esteemed broadcast career that you've had even before you got to Detroit.
Okay, I'm not one to want to brag on
Loaded
myself.
question. Loaded
Okay.
question.
However, I'm just a little girl from Toledo, Ohio, who always wanted to be a news reporter. I grew up reading newspapers, watching the news with my parents. They were very avid, readers and news watchers, and we're always, saying how wonderful it was to be able to go to the polls and vote, that kind of thing. I came up in that kind of family, and as growing up in Toledo, born and raised there, went to Woodward High School, which was a predominantly white school at the time, even though my neighborhood was mixed, but there was one area of Toledo that had no high school and they bussed them over. So it kind of turned the school, really white. So
Right.
we had to try a little harder. I tried to be in everything in high school. I wanted to be a cheerleader. I couldn't do a backflip. I couldn't even jump up and touch the tips of my toes, but I still tried. Then I didn't make it. I tried to be a majorette and they said, well, you have to be in a band. You have to play an instrument to be a majorette. Well, I didn't know that. I don't see the majorettes playing anything. So I don't know if they just didn't want me or what, but I didn't stop there. I said, the drama club, that's what I'll do. And I did forensics and I traveled with our team all over the city and got featured in the Toledo Blade when I think I was in the ninth grade. And so I was always a person who was not shy. I liked memorizing monologues and that kind of thing. So I really got into that. And as a kid, a young person, I would stand in the mirror, at home in the bathroom with my hairbrush like this, pretending it was a microphone and
Wow.
emulate Walter Cronkite. And that's the
Yeah,
way it is,
that's the
because
way it is.
there weren't any women to try to copy, but it was Walter Cronkite. And I said, I want to do that. And
Mm,
of course, I didn't get a lot of support, from my family on that. It was just like, yeah, that's what she wants to do. Yeah, good luck with that.
mhm.
My father even said, and I remember his exact words, he said, they are not going to put a little colored girl on the news.
Now,
And when
what year was this? Would it have been approximately?
this is when I was in college and I was going to go to
Yes,
grad
okay.
school with radio, TV, film. And he
Yeah.
just said, I spent all this money sending you to Fisk University, and you should be a teacher or something like that, because that's what we did back then. This was, yeah, back in the 70s. So, but I pursued my career. I was successful. I was the very first Black woman, or woman of color, as they say today, on television, on the news in Toledo. I was the
Mm,
first.
mm.
And this is what's funny today. It made the front page of the Toledo Blade.
Oh my gosh.
That is not news today. That is
No.
totally not news. There's Black folks all over every station, everywhere. But I was the first one. And at that time, we only had two network stations in Toledo, ABC and CBS. We didn't have NBC. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Or we
Mm,
didn't have ABC. So there were two stations. The station I went to, that I got hired, and they grabbed me right out of grad school. I didn't, they said, would you like to be on TV? I had this interview. They put me on, and they were the second place station. I
mhm.
mean, really low second place. And the other station was way up here. Within the first rating period, we were a strong number one.
Oh
I'm
wow.
not going to take all the credit, because I think a lot of it
Yeah,
was,
again, I'm sure you
but a lot of it
probably
was
added some value to it.
but it was
Yeah,
curiosity. It was
yeah,
curiosity. Curiosity. I was a novelty.
yeah, of
I
course.
think I was pretty good, but I could have been mediocre, and I think the ratings still would have gone up, because women in particular, like, there's a there's this girl on TV, you know,
Hmm.
and the men too. And uh, let it be told that my father, who said they'd never put a little colored girl on TV, he was a Mason, and there was a bar in Toledo that was owned by the Masons or whatever, and they'd go there, after work and that kind of thing, and watch TV and drink beer and talk like men do, you guys. And I was told that when the news came on, he told the barmaid, they called him at that
Oh,
time, turn up the TV, and everybody shut the heck up, you know,
that's
because
awesome.
my daughter's on TV. And that afterwards, the guys were just like, wow,
Oh,
Chuck
that's a
Mitchell's
great story.
daughter, look at this. And so it was a big thing. So I am really more proud of that. My
Absolutely.
introduction as being a neophyte in the
Yeah,
news, than because back then you just had to be a man, halfway good looking, and have a deep voice, you know.
big
But
voice.
things have changed. Thank goodness things have changed. So I didn't
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
there very long. I moved on to Baltimore, where I think I anchored the morning cut-ins. They're like 5 minutes.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
like in between the
Yes.
Today Show breaks, it was an NBC station, and I do 5 minutes of news and come back and do 5 more minutes of news every hour. And I was a consumer reporter. That's not what I wanted to be. I was kind of hard news coming, and they said, no, no, consumerism was really big then. So it was a good decision that they made, because I got a lot of big stories. And then Oprah Winfrey came to town, and she worked at the station next door to us on Television Hill. There was a big
Hmm.
place at Television Hill, had two TV stations. The other station was way across town. She started dating a guy at my station. This is public knowledge, it's in everybody's book. And so I got to meet her because he invited her into our little clique that we get off work on Fridays, and we would go to this one little restaurant that had happy hour. And they had all
Hmm.
this food. So we go there and pretty much, buy one drink and eat a whole bunch of food, and we wouldn't have to buy dinner. We didn't make a whole bunch of money in those days.
Right.
So, but, and we were like, you can't bring her. We don't want her to come over. We don't like her. She has billboards.
Mhm.
We were pretty much jealous of the publicity she was getting before she even started on the air.
Sure.
Her, and my goodness, the nicest person you ever wanted to meet.
No, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we met up again later because I went to Washington. I'll skip over that. I went to Washington, D.C. and worked
Hmm.
at the ABC station there as a reporter. And I was doing hard news. And I was really young. I mean, I was in my, early 20s, and I'm in the nation's capital at a big
Right.
station.
That's
And you
awesome.
go out on stories and you look around. Dan Rather stepped on my foot. Okay.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. We were in the little concession stand or something that's at the Capitol building, a little drugstore, whatever. People go there buy gum and stuff." And he's like apologizing, and I'm looking at him like, "Oh my God,
Dan Rather,
step on the other foot." I'm in the same
the
room,
legendary Dan
yeah,
Rather.
breathing the same air as a Dan Rather. I mean, it was like,
That's awesome.
so I knew then that I was going to have to really be on my toes, because sometimes I would get caught up in looking around the room and seeing who's there and recognizing
Mhm.
these stars. And I would stop taking notes. I'm like, oh shoot, I better pay attention, you
So
know.
kind of starstruck in those
Yeah,
days.
I was starstruck. I was starstruck.
Mhm.
I thought that would be my landing spot, Washington. I mean, who wants to leave there? Then I met Dick Gregory, covering a story on
Mm.
Thanksgiving Day because I had to work on the holiday. And every Thanksgiving, he would do a protest in front of the White House. This is before all the fencing and the electronics that would, stop you from getting close. And he brought two of his 10 children, brought two boys. And so I'm covering that and I'm watching him get arrested and put into the paddy wagon or whatever they
Mhm.
call it back then.
Mhm.
And I went
Mhm.
over and interviewed his two sons. I forget what I said. Well, how do you feel, watching your dad get arrested?
Right.
And got back to the station, edited the story, it went on TV. And then I was still in the newsroom because at that time we didn't have DVR. So usually stayed over so you could watch yourself on TV. Because if you tried to go home, you would miss it.
You'll
So,
miss it.
and
Mhm.
everybody's still in the newsroom gathered around. They go, Charlene, you got a phone call. It's Dick Gregory. I'm like, okay, yeah, punk me out. All
All
right.
right.
He's in jail. So I go to the phone. It's him. And I'm like, I thought you were locked up. He says, oh, I am. I'm just sitting here with the guards watching TV. That was a really good interview you did with my kid. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
he said, yeah, I got a phone. I got TV. I'm cool. He said, I do this all the time. It's like a
Yeah.
routine kind of thing. So it's kind of like a sham that he's in jail
Right.
because he's going to get right out. And long story short, the next day when he was out, my then husband and I think we were married, fiance, he took us to dinner and he offered me, he says, I know you love your job, but why don't you come to work with me? And I'm getting ready to do a cross country run for the bicentennial. Of course, that was
Mm.
1976. Right?
1976.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding. Leave TV, this job that I have to come and ride in a van and follow you doing a 50-mile a day run with a bunch of marathons.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't think he says, look. I didn't tell you the rest of it. He says, when you finish, you'll go and work at a station in Boston. Like, well, how do
Oh,
you know?
wow.
He said, because I can set that up. I'm going to put you with my agents, International Creative Management,
Mhm.
ICM in New York. And I'm thinking, this is too much, because I'm still
Wow.
young and I don't know if to believe this. It's like, I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And of course, my guy is like, no, because then I'll have to change jobs. I'll have to move or you're going to leave. But anyway, we worked it out and I went. And in order to make me feel comfortable, he got me the interview with I forget which station was, MAL. Oh no, that was DC. He got me this Boston interview.
That's
And
awesome.
they said, I signed the contract. The agents came in. They got me more money than I ever made, even though they were going to take 10%.
Mhm.
They gave me the extension I could start after the run was over. Whoa.
Say, wow.
Yes. And
And
they
you're
paid
still
for
in
me
your
to move.
20s at that time.
Yes, I'm
And
in
you,
my 20s. So
yeah.
we go to LA and I set up and there was no internet. We didn't have cell phones. I don't know how I did the PR because we had the wire services and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have to stop and
Remember
use payphones.
these.
And I did the PR like going ahead, like if he was headed this way, headed east, I'd go to the small town ahead and let people know Dick Gregory's coming. He'll be here in like 2 hours. And all the media, these are small towns that have nothing going on. So we got great publicity everywhere. The governors would come out, the mayors, everybody, the marching bands. It was great. And we went from LA to New York. And the last day, we ended up in New York City on Good Morning America, and he still had on his running clothes. And I'm like, I did this? Really?
Wow.
Then I had about 2 weeks to regroup
And then
and
go to Boston.
get a wardrobe together for Boston. Because
Mhm.
now, even though I'm coming out of DC, which is big time,
Yeah,
Boston's a
yeah.
little different. And it was at the height of busing. And
Oh,
at that
yeah.
time, it was very, very volatile. But I'm coming in there. Hey, I'm coming from DC. I'm not a neophyte. I'm cool. I'm good. And they sent me to cover a story at a beach in South Boston. South Boston is known for a lot of
Oh,
racist
yeah.
kind of
Racist. Mhm.
but South Boston and Roxbury are right next to each other. South Boston is mostly white.
Roxbury, if I recall, is that the home of Marvelous Robert Hagler,
Yes,
boxer? Or was he
yes,
Brockton? Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And Bobby Brown and his group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I bought a house over there. Anyway,
Okay.
yes. So they send me to this story, and I see it's 100 degrees. I'm not kidding. It was like 100 degrees. So everybody's out at the beach, because there's two housing projects, which
Hmm.
low income housing, and all the white kids are out with their parents, and the black kids are. Everybody's out. Nobody wants to be inside. There's no air conditioning. They want to be in the water because you're at the water. You're at the beach, and these grown, adult women, white women, were throwing rocks at the little black kids. And I'm like, what is this? Me coming in, here comes Charlene. I'm like,
Right.
that's not nice. Why are you doing this? And I'm something trying to, I'm gonna go in like, I'm gonna be the savior of all this stuff. The lady said, you must be new around here. I'm like, well, yeah. I said, but why are you doing, can't everybody get along? One of those guys. I'm trying to settle something. Instead
Right.
of covering it, I involved myself, which I
Mm.
probably should not have, but I felt like I needed to. So I turned around to ask my cameraman something. My cameraman was up on the hill. He was with the long lens. He wasn't, because he had been there before. He
Was
knew
the
what the
cameraman black
situation
or
had been.
white? Was he black
He
or
was
white?
white. He was white.
Okay.
But he left me there.
Hmm.
He left me there in the midst of it. I did a story, and I left, and we got back in the van. I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this. This is horrible. He said, well, you shouldn't have tried to talk to the lady, and you should. And I really, but that's how he felt. I thought he was wrong. I said, yo, I really needed to talk to her because I needed to know why people were behaving like this. Why are adults throwing rocks and sand at little kids and calling them, the N word and saying, go back home? And it's their beach too. Who owns the beach?
Mm.
The universe owns
That's
the beach.
wow.
So anyway, that was the highlight of my introduction to Boston. Other than that, it was a great career there. Um, there was a lot to do. You could go up to New Hampshire, Connecticut. You could go a lot of places. In the summer, you go to the vineyard, you go to
But then you take a
Nantucket.
detour, but then you take a detour towards Detroit. Is that right?
No, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I took it to, yeah, after Boston, came to
How'd you end up
Detroit.
in Detroit?
Well, I don't want to get real personal, but I was trying to save my marriage.
Yeah.
And I thought
Okay.
if I get closer to my family, my parents, cousins, and everybody,
Sure.
and some of his family, we get out of Boston and get back to, everything will be better. Well, that didn't work. But I was thinking this, and I never
Hmm.
applied for a job. All of a sudden, I get I find out about these openings, and a guy from Channel 2 called me. It was not Fox at the time, it was Store
Right.
Broadcasting,
Yep.
Channel 2.
I remember.
And they said, we want to hire you for the noon news. And I was doing medical reporting in Boston, okay, which I loved.
Hmm.
And that's when I won my first single Emmy, was
Because
in
you've
medical.
won three Emmys. Is that right? Two or
Two.
three? Two. Okay. Two
Well, I
Emmys.
call it two and a half. The third one, I never got it.
Okay.
So somebody, I don't know where the station kept it or whatever.
Okay.
But so they said, like, we saw your stuff. I guess a talent scout had been out and they hired me to do medical reporting. And I anchored the weekend news, not right off the bat. I was there about 3 years before they gave me that. And that was great. So when I came here, yeah, I'm still talking about Boston. I'm getting confused. So I came here, Channel 2 said, we want you to do the noon news and do medical reporting. But when I got here, things changed. And they hired another woman who had maybe a year experience on TV.
Mhm.
I won't say her name. They changed her name because her last name was Moron. So of course they didn't want anybody named
Right.
Moron.
Right.
They changed her name for TV. And I'm like, you're giving her the new news? Well, things change, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't get that spot. But I was, still doing health reporting and it was good. But I only had a 1 year contract. That contract came up. Channel 7 must have known, they knew everything that everybody was. And they called and they said, are you under contract? I said, yeah, but it's coming up. They said, well, we'd like you to come over here and work. So I'm going to use that as leverage. You know,
Absolutely.
Miss
Hmm.
Miss Mitchell with the agent, but I didn't have an agent anymore. And so I went and I told him, I said, my contract's coming up. Channel 7 wants me to come work for them. They said, well, you probably should go. I'm like, well, dag.
Wow. They didn't even try to stop you.
No, well, thank you. Because I went over there and made more money, more
Sure.
exposure. Channel 2 was a third place station. Channel
Yeah.
7 was a strong number one. Even
Was
DIV
that
was
back with Bill Bonds?
Bill Bonds, Diana Lewis.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
legendary folks.
yeah, legendary. John Kelly, Marilyn Turner,
Mhm.
with the morning show. They were the first to have a real live morning show that was solid, but it was an ABC owned and operated station at that
Remember
time.
that? I remember
So
that.
when I
Yeah,
would go out to do my stories, it was like going back to DC. You had a cameraman, a light man, and a sound man. So
yeah.
the four of us that went out. So you always looked good. You always
Mhm.
sounded good. Somebody was fixing your,
Yeah,
doing this and that. And so I kind of got spoiled. And then, I worked there for, I think, 3, 4 years and I started my business, but
yeah. So that's so
media
much. So
consultants.
you got the media business, and
Mhm.
then you became an entrepreneur.
And I
For
had
those
a,
of you,
a young child.
for
I had a
those of you tuning in, we're
6 year old.
talking to Charlene Mitchell, and we're taking a slightly different twist about this conversation in the conversation. We're talking about a different side of Charlene, not necessarily the public side, but where she's just giving you her journey, how she ended up in Detroit, and now we're going down the pathway of her starting her own business. Go right ahead.
So I'm covering the news, at Channel 7. And at night, I'm coming home and I'm brainstorming and I'm, on my typewriter, didn't have laptops, and coming up with a plan to start a PR firm. It wasn't really that hard because as a TV news reporter, every day you go in, the assignment editor is handing you something that's
Yeah,
from a PR agency.
that's true.
Here's your
That's true.
story. You're covering this today. And you look at it, you go, you see typos and stuff. And I'm like,
Mhm.
writing this stuff, I could do better than this. And so I started doing little sample press releases just for myself, not sending them to.
Right.
Then all of a sudden I found out how to do it. And I went out to Oakland County and got an assumed name, paid the fee, had some cards made, but I was still just doing little bitty stuff. And then it came to the point where I would get a story to cover and I'd say, it's going to be a conflict because it would be something like in the auto business. And
Hmm.
I was starting to do some work with Mel Farr. I said, I probably can't do that. So I'd run in and go, oh, really? You're doing that? How do you have time for that? Well, and it still worked out. But after a while, I started doing a lot of fashion
Hmm.
PR. And downtown Birmingham, I probably had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stores, right in the midst of where all the action is that I was doing. And people, how are you getting all those clients? Because I didn't charge much.
In charge much.
And
Hmm.
they dropped the person they had and got me, and they were probably laughing behind my back. But that's okay. That's okay.
But you got business from them.
I got
Help you
business from them.
establish. It help
I
you
had
establish
jewelry
the
store,
foundational
shoe store,
business.
kids clothing store. I had all kind of stuff. And
Right.
then I had so many clients. I started. My son at that time was the house model for the Detroit News when they had the double spread. They called
Oh
double
yeah.
truck every Sunday, and it
Hmm.
would be there and a couple other kids that were the house models. And they say shoes by so and so, his outfit is by so and so, and so I got everybody in the paper. And so I was having a ball. I was
Yeah.
having a ball. And then top that off, I got my PR firm going. I'm working at Channel 7. Then I switched just to weekends. So I worked Saturday and Sunday at Channel 7 because I took
Hmm.
a job at Southfield High School as the broadcasting teacher
Oh my
and
goodness.
running the radio station, the student run radio station, WSHJ,
SHJ.
88.3,
Yeah.
88.3. And so I taught one class, Introduction to Broadcasting, where I had like, 30 kids or whatever. And then the other 5 classes or 4 classes during the day, I could hand pick. You had to sign up and be interviewed. And there were only 10 kids in a class, and they actually had their own radio shows. And we had a beautiful studio. I think
Oh,
you
I
probably
remember.
are familiar with that
Yeah.
studio. And anything I wanted, they would buy it because I said,
Well,
I need,
I
I need
shouldn't
sound
say I
effects.
know it, but I went to Southfield High School, but that was years before you were dating.
Yeah,
Before you started dating myself, but years before you started working there. But I do remember the studio back in the day when
yeah.
I was a student there, and it was back in the day. It was definitely state of the art for a high school studio. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And
continue.
I told him, I said,
Yeah.
I need some sound effects. They said, well, find out what it costs. And they got me all these albums, like the 33
Oh my gosh, the
albums,
45, the
the
33.
45, the 33s, and had sound effects for every kind of animal because the kids wanted all that. And they were very creative in putting
Yeah.
together shows and running the board. And I didn't know how to run the board. Now I'm the broadcast teacher. I had one of the kids show me how to run the board because if you don't show up
Hmm.
or something, I need to be able to do it. And they taught me and I taught them. And like you, as a college instructor, I would bring in people in the media to speak to my class. So sometimes I didn't have
I'm
to
sure they love
spend
that.
I brought in John Mason, I brought this
Really?
one. They would love it. And everybody wanted to be in the radio program.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, I did that for a couple of years and then I just said, forget it. I'm just gonna do PR. And that's what I did. Just go
Yeah.
back here.
Before we wrap up in a few minutes, because I want to get a sense what you're doing next. One little known fact, in case you don't know about Charlene, of course you may not. You know her public side, but on the private side, you have a brother who played college basketball. I believe was in the Hall of Fame, and I think you have some acknowledgments from Toledo in terms of your recognition back home. Talk about your
Well,
brother briefly.
you know, I only wish my dad, were still alive, that he could
Yeah,
see that now he has two kids that are going to be at the Hall of Fame at their high schools. My younger brother, Todd Mitchell, played for St. Francis High School in Toledo,
mhm.
and he helped them bring the first state championship to any school in Toledo. So he's in their little Hall of Fame. Then he got full scholarship to Purdue. He played for Purdue. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame and the Sports Hall of Fame. He played under
That's
Gene Keady,
outstanding.
and he was drafted by the Denver Nuggets. Played for the first Miami Heat team, and and then they start jumping around and going to Europe and all that. Okay, so he's in his high school Hall of Fame. I just got a letter a few weeks ago that I have been selected to be in the Woodward High School Hall of Fame. Woodward Polar Bears, go ahead.
That's
And
awesome.
you know something, again, just like I said, being the first
Yeah.
woman on TV in Toledo, when something happens in your hometown and you haven't lived there for decades,
Yes.
and somebody still remembers you and
Yes.
acknowledges you. I am so excited about that because I guess
It's
they
well
didn't just
deserved.
start this. There's a whole bunch of names on the plaque already. So I guess they finally got around to, like, what
Do
about
you know
her?
what?
You know?
It's well deserved. And I think, and we've had this conversation before. Obviously everybody knows I'm from Detroit, but I live in 8 different cities across the country. And even when I lived in those cities across the country, Charlotte, I always made the connection I was still from Detroit. That's just who I am, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But when I came back and I realized how people still appreciate you, they appreciate me. And I think that kind of blew me away.
Hmm.
And I think that's why I have a special, just like you have a special kinship towards Toledo, although you've been living here for a long time. I've always had a special kinship towards Detroit, whether it's because of my family name, my father, or me or whatever I've done. And now I think I posted something the other day on Facebook. I just said thank you. It was just
I saw
thank
that.
you.
That
Yes,
was
just
nice.
because so many people reach out to you, they acknowledge what you're doing, and they just appreciate what you're doing at large. And I think with you, same thing with your relation with Toledo, your hometown, as we always affectionately say, a suburb of Detroit.
Right. Right.
but but no,
Because as a
it's
kid, we came to Detroit to go Christmas shopping at Hudson's because there was
yeah,
not a whole lot happening in Toledo.
yeah.
And I
But
know my parents always came to Detroit to party.
but
They
we
to
would
the
go down
20
to
Grand
Toledo.
and
I
all
remember
that.
going down to the Toledo Zoo. I remember
Yeah,
going
we
down
had a
to
great zoo.
there's a steakhouse down there, Mancy's Steakhouse, I think.
Mancy's, Mancy's? That
Yes,
was
I
the number one fancy dancy restaurant, and it's
yeah.
still there.
I
The
used to do a
family,
lot of
the
business
family
in
owns a
Toledo.
couple of places, but Mancy's is still where, um, if you were lucky, you go there for dinner on prom night. You know,
Okay. Well,
if your parents.
this was more so my professional career. And I remember we were all coming down from Detroit. They said we're gonna take you all to Macy's and nobody wanted to leave.
Oh wow, yeah, it
It
was
was
it was
awesome.
something.
But before we wrap up, let's talk about obviously we had a long career and a wonderful radio career. And so what's next? What are you transitioning into? You had a popular show called Mind Your Business and a lot of other things you're doing. So what's next for Charlie Mitchell? Remaining
Well,
couple minutes.
once I left television and went full, thing into my PR, I never expected really to be back in broadcasting when that opportunity came up. Okay, we'll do that. I'm trained to do that. That'll be fun. So for
Mhm.
6 years and 8 months, I was on the radio with two shows, the Charlene Mitchell Show and Mind Your Business. And I'm taking Mind Your Business to, it's going to be the same thing, but different platform. We're going to be on a podcast. And I wasn't expecting to do that, but sometimes changes happen which make you do something that you should have been doing in the first place.
Yeah.
So we have already recorded 4 shows. They're not edited yet. I did all of that. What is today? Is today? I did all of that last week. I can't keep up
Yeah.
with the days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Two
did
days ago.
we did four shows that are in the can, as we say, but they have to be tweaked, and they will be on a YouTube channel, which is yet to be set up. And
All right.
so that's I'm really excited about that. Really excited about it because the sponsors from my radio show are now the sponsors of the podcast.
That's
And
awesome.
I kind of thought, ooh, are they going to like this? They love it because
Well,
actually, and you know, you do a lot of this kind of thing, the Zooms. You really get more eyeballs and ears this way than you do on the radio. So
I
it's the wave of the future, and I'm happy about it.
I want to applaud you. I think, one of the things that I know Charlene's been asked a lot, and we're purposely focused on the future, is always what's next. And, you're right. I was talking to my students, our semester started recently, and I asked the question the other day, how many of you have listened to a radio in the last month? How many hands do you think went up?
Mm,
These
one,
are these are juniors and seniors in college.
mm,
Zero.
zero.
I asked how many of you, no, okay, how many of you, I asked the question, have watched a traditional TV station? When I mean traditional TV station, I'm not talking about the streaming services. Because now we know that, excuse me, TV is going through the streaming service. I get all that. But I said the traditional TV, one. And the student said, Professor, the only reason I watched this because my grandmother was watching television.
Oh, wow.
Interesting, isn't it? And so I say that to say one of the questions that I'm sure we both have received is what are you doing next? And let me tell you something. The voices in Detroit will continue, and the voices in Detroit will continue along various platforms and across the emerging platforms. So I want to applaud you for taking your mind your business to YouTube and your other many other platforms that you have. And I want to just take a personal moment to thank everyone for reaching out to me and being supportive as well. I want you to know we appreciate all of you and we're not going anywhere. We're still here. You see, we're still here. We're still here. And now the difference is we're here in a different format, but you can have the same information. Charlie mentioned where can
You can
people get in
watch and
touch?
listen whenever you want to, because you
That's
can go and
exactly
look
right.
at it at your
Well,
leisure.
at your leisure. So as we wrap up, how can people get in touch with you? Or we have a Facebook page or social media pages? What do you want to share?
Well, I do. Yeah, I'm still kind of changing all of that around because I
Okay.
got hacked. And so people are like,
Yeah.
which one of these? I went on Facebook and you got two or three of them. Which one is which? Because I don't know, these hackers, I don't know what they get out of that, what kind of satisfaction, but they kind of mess you up once in a while. But
Yeah.
people can email me anytime if they have ideas at cmitch, that's CMITCH 03 at Comcast.net. Or you
All
go to
right.
Charlene Mitchell Rogers, Rogers with a D, Charlene Mitchell Rogers on Facebook, and you'll see me in all my stuff.
All right. Well, Charlene Mitchell, thanks for joining me in the conference room as always. I appreciate it. Again, a slightly different twist to the conversation. Hope you got a chance to get to know Charlene in a different way. So I appreciate you very much. And thanks for joining me in the conference room.
And I appreciate you having me. This was fun. I like that.
Okay.
I like this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And all stay tuned, and then we're gonna have more episodes of In the Conference Room. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to In the Conference Room. That is our YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram and follow us on all these other social media platforms. Thank you all. We will check you out soon. Thank you very much.